1, 2.
Good afternoon, everyone. Appreciate you all joining us for the post-game press conference for the UConn Huskies. We are joined by head coach Gino Auriemma, sophomore guard Paige Beckers, and fifth-year forward Dorka Juhas. We will begin with opening remarks from Coach Auriemma and follow up with questions for Paige and Dorka. Lastly, we'll circle back with Coach Auriemma for any other questions. When asking questions, please wait until the microphone is handed to you to ask your question, and for any virtual questions, please use the hand raise function and wait to be unmuted. Please be sure to state your name and affiliation prior to asking your question. Coach, we'll start with the opening remarks.
Thank you. Well, I think the game probably went like you probably expect. You know, first-round games tend to, take a while to get settled into. And I thought the first half was kind of choppy and a little bit disjointed and trying to find our rhythm. And our defense was good, and our offense, I thought, was a little bit out of sync. I think changing the starting lineup and, putting a sub in the starting lineup, I think affected us more than I thought it would. But it takes a little bit of time in that first game, and I thought we came out in the second half and we played exceptionally good defense in that third quarter, and that got everything going in the right direction, and got us more involved offensively, and that was more like what I expect to see, and hopefully we'll see a lot more of that Monday night because we'll need a lot more of that for sure.
Thanks, Coach. Now we'll open it up for questions for Paige and Dorka. Sorry.
Paige, Howard Megdal at the Next. Playing 24 minutes today, it seemed like there was a comfort that you felt throughout the game, number one. Number two, it seemed like the movements you had were a little bit smoother from this view. Just take me through what it felt like and what, if any, differences you felt compared to the Big East tournament.
Yeah, I think ever since the end of the Big East tournament, I've just tried to lock in mentally and physically and trying to do whatever I have to do, cut certain stuff out, and just really lock in this next month. Just getting my body prepared, my mind prepared, and I think in the last 10 days I really locked in on that. And that's helped me gain confidence in my movements and what I'm doing on the court, and then just my teammates giving me confidence, my coaches giving me confidence, and just to keep working, and they're going to be by my side and help me with that. So I think just a whole lot of confidence and moving better, and the preparation has helped me be better on the court.
Jeff Magliacetti with Huskies Report. This question is for Dorka. It's so rare here in UConn that a senior makes her NCAA tournament debut here. So can you just describe the raw emotion you felt in contributing and finally making it to the tournament and contributing on a tournament-winning team?
Mm-hmm. I mean, it was very exciting, as you said, as a senior, that was my first game, so I was a little nervous, excited to be here, and just it felt good, it felt good that I was out on the court with this team, and I'm happy that we got this win. Obviously, it wasn't perfect, and I can say, personally, my play wasn't perfect either. So, but it was definitely a good experience for me.
Deshaun Jones from NBA Online. My question is for either one of the players. We're early in March Madness, and for lack of better words, we already saw some surprises in the tournament. What was coach's words to you guys to set the tone defensively to start the game?
Just to play our game, no matter the opponent, no matter who we're playing. We got to be focused on ourselves, and we take pride here in putting our defense first and letting the offense come after that. So just being able to lock in, and we work super hard in practice on defense, and that's our sort of standing ground, just holding people to less points and just being active on defense. So just no matter what team we're playing, no matter what round it is, we're just focused on that.
Jim Clark from Women's Hoops World. Paige, You were very efficient, but you only took 7 shots. Did you hear anything negative from your coach about not shooting enough?
No, I think I'm just still trying to find my way back in. Obviously, different role today in the starting lineup. I'm not really looking to force shots. I'm just looking to shoot when I'm open and get everybody else involved. I mean, that's what I did last year. That's what I'm going to continue to do this year. And if a game calls for me to take 15 shots or 2 shots, it doesn't really matter to me.
Hey, Zar Johnson from NBA Online. This question is for you both, you two. What did you guys do defensively for the third period? Because you basically shut them out the whole third period. They didn't score 1 point at all. What were you guys doing defensively to keep them shut out of the third period?
I think, just that full court pressure, kind of being more aggressive. Even in the first half we did more of the full court pressure, but I thought in the third quarter we were more logged in. It was more it was sharper. We were able to get some steals, get some traps. So I think, it was just a different kind of mindset, a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more logged in. And, that's how we have to come out the first quarter as well.
This is Don Memori from the Hartford Current. It seems like no matter who's in the game, whatever the combination is, the defense still looks the same. Still has the same intensity, the same level. How have you guys developed that in practice with nine people kind of playing with one mind defensively?
I think everybody's just being ready whenever their time is coming up, and I think that's what we're really doing. We're not really talking about who's playing, how many minutes and stuff like that, so I think it's really good that whoever is coming off the bench, they come in to play, they come in to be aggressive and kind of, give it that second wind and everything with the new players in and be aggressive. And sometimes, other teams play a lot of players for the whole quarter, so whenever maybe they're getting a little tired, that second lineup can come in and, be aggressive. So I think everybody's just ready to play. Whenever it is, if it's the end of a quarter, middle of the quarter, it doesn't matter, I think. And we're just taking pride in that.
Alexa Philp. Can you hear me? Hello? Alexa Philpy with ESPN. Paige, the team was pretty good defensively last year, but it seems like this year it's even elevated that to a new level. From watching on the bench for so long this season, but also being back in the fold now, where do you see the biggest areas of growth on the defensive end of the floor from last year to this year?
I think just our mindset. Last year we played our best basketball in the Big East tournament and the NCAA tournament when we really had our defense figured out. So I think we just try to get that from the start this year instead of waiting until the tournament to play really good defense. So I think just a shift in mindset and putting that first and letting the offense. I mean, when our defense is great, our offense is going to come naturally. So just putting that first, and I think just picking up the intensity and the aggressiveness was huge for us. And also having that depth, just be able to full court pressure like we did today. Whenever guys get tired, we have a new group or subs come in and they apply the same pressure. So I think that also affected it.
Maggie Vanoni from Hearst, Connecticut Media. What's it like now to have Aubrey back on the sideline? Obviously, she's not working out quite yet, but just having her presence back with the team.
It's been awesome. We always got the good luck test every single time, we play from Aubrey, and now it's great that she's actually here. And, it's just awesome to see her, and I think she likes to be with us, around us, and it helps her to be, get better with her recovery, and it helps us to feel like we actually have the full team here, and, we really appreciate her on the bench. She's always very supportive, and it's just great to have the whole team here.
All right, we have time for one more question for the student athletes. Right up front.
Vicky Fulkerson from the New London Day. Paige, were you and Coach joked around about you being a sub and starting today, but were you nervous at all or anything like that, going back into the lineup to start the NCAA tournament?
I think I get nervous before every game just because I care so much and I want to do so well for my teammates and for my coaches and the whole program. So it doesn't really matter what role I'm playing, whether it be off the bench, starting, 30 minutes, 10 minutes. I think I just have so much passion for the game that I'm going to be excited and nervous and anxious for every single game. So I guess it doesn't really matter the role.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Paige and Dorka. All right, and now we can open it up for questions for Coach Oriema.
Coach Jeff Maglicetti with Huskies Report. In the first quarter, it was an 8-point lead, and you lost the turnover battle 6-5. What was the message to the team in the end of the first quarter huddle, and how do you think they responded from there on out?
You know, one thing I've learned over the last couple of years, you know, you just try to get you try to get your point across, but you're not always quite sure whether or not it's being received the same every day. We went we went into the game wanting to play quickly and make sure that we created as many possessions as possible. And one of the downsides to playing like that is you try to play a little too quickly sometimes and play fast and make passes and make decisions that you wouldn't ordinarily make. And I thought defensively, Mercer did a pretty good job of forcing some of our other guys to have to make shots early in the game, and that always takes a little bit of time to get used to. But as Paige said, the best thing that you can do for your offense is get your defense where it needs to be and let that translate into offense. And I thought from the second quarter on we did that.
Gino, Howard Magdal with the Nets. Good to see you. Obviously Paige talked about being comfortable with whatever minutes, whatever role. 24 is the high, I think, that she's had since she's been back. Is the thinking been, how do we get her to a point where she's at full strength for the duration of this tournament? Or does this more closely align with kind of where you see her max minutes likely to be here in the tournament?
I don't think there's any set amount of time that we have. Initially, we did. When she was first coming back, there was. But right now, I just kind of go by what I see and what it feels like and what I think. Trying to read her mind or trying to read her body language, and try to be respectful too of, we have a game on Monday. So I think there's a lot of decisions that go into that. But right now I don't have a particular number in mind. If today if it was 24 today, it could be 20 tomorrow, it could be 30, 20 on Monday, it could be 30 on Monday. I think a lot depends on what the game looks like and what she looks like.
Gino, Roger Cleveland from the Waterboro Republican American. What worked so well for you guys defensively during that third quarter and for most of the last three quarters?
By the time you get to this point in the season, if you've been paying attention as a player, which is asking a lot, like if you've been paying attention, by the time you get to this point in the season where you played 30-some games, there really isn't anything that you're going to see that you say, guys, I think we're going to have a real problem on Saturday because they run some stuff on offense that we've never seen all year long. So everything that you see at this time of the year, you've seen it before. You've had to guard it. You've had some success with it. And then it's just a matter of, can you get your players to to play with a certain intensity level, and there's there's teams that you can play full court more. There's some you can't play full court. There's some you can trap more. There's some you can't trap. So it's a lot of decisions based on, what does the team look like that we're playing, and what did we do when we played other teams that look like this, and so it takes a little bit of time to figure out how a team wants to attack you. And I think once we figured that out, and then how the game is being called, how aggressive you can be. So a lot of those things go into the decision making, but mainly it's all about, what's your effort and what's your, communication like on defense. And I thought in the third quarter, at halftime I wasn't too pleased. I wasn't too thrilled at all with the way the first 20 minutes went. And, I thought we came out with a different, different attitude in the third quarter.
Gino, Jim Clark with Women's Hoops World. Dorka has a 10 and 10, double. She has appeared to be playing with a great deal of intensity, kind of in the last 7-8 games that we didn't see earlier in the season. Do you have some comment on how that suddenly kicked in? Because she was all over the place today.
I wish I could say I knew the answers to these questions. I would just be guessing, but I think players want to play. That's number one. One of the positives of having people that had to sit out so much time, and you're constantly missing players, is players are playing a lot of minutes. They know they're going to play a lot of minutes, and they start to learn to be productive. Now, when you start to add those players and bring them back, if you're smart, you think, well, I want to play the same number of minutes I was playing before those guys came back, so I better get my act together and make sure that I'm playing at that level, or it's going to be easy to just go, okay, next. So I think having the ability to take someone out when they're not playing well, and then remind them of why they were playing in the first place, that goes a long way. And Dorka's a competitive kid, and I love how hard she plays. I love how competitive she is, and never surprises me how hard she works defensively, how hard she works rebounding the ball. That's probably been the biggest contribution that she's made to our team. The points have been great, yeah, but passing the ball, rebounding the ball, playing defense, I think all those things have been really, really solid for the majority of the year. More so now, though.
With the final question right up front.
Yeah. Gino, Donald Morey from The Current. I know you've talked a lot about communicating with contemporary players, but is the buy-in of this group on defense, on playing defense, is it exceptional? Is it extraordinary? Or is it maybe just typical of your better teams that you've had?
I would say it's typical of the best teams we've had. You can't win with just playing really good defense, Otherwise, there would be a lot of great defensive teams that win a lot of championships. You still have to be able to put the ball in the basket, right? So you have to be able to score. But the best teams that we've had over the years have been really hard to score against, really hard to run their offense against. And because we put the kind of pressure we put on them by scoring now puts even more pressure on them to have to score, and it just, kind of accelerates the downslide. But not every team wants to play at this level defensively. Now every team wants to play this hard. For a young team, I think it's pretty unusual for as many young players as we have that they want, to be that good defensively. I think Nika is a big deal in all that. I think when she's not in the game, our defense is not the same, and you saw it today. The minute she enters the game, things change, and then people get caught up in that. It's contagious, and the beauty of being able to recruit pretty good offensive players and then making them play defense is that you can't shoot your way into our lineup. I mean, you can, but you better make them all. And then we've had some guys that played a lot of minutes that didn't play any defense, but they made them all. So, yeah, you got to make exceptions for some people. But every good team that's going to be left standing in the NCAA tournament a couple weeks from now is probably going to be a really, really good defensive team. And if we want us to be that team, then it has to be as good as it was today and even better.
Awesome. Thank you, Coach Auriemma.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Appreciate you all joining us for the post-game press conference for the Mercer Bears. We are joined by head coach Susie Gardner, senior forward Jaron Doherty, and senior guard Shannon Titus. We will begin with opening remarks from Coach Gardner and follow up with questions for Jaron and Shannon. Lastly, we'll circle back with Coach Gardner for any other questions. When asking questions, please wait until the microphone is handed to you to ask your question. For any virtual questions, please use the hand raise function and wait to be unmuted. Please be sure to state your name and affiliation prior to asking your question. Coach, we'll start with your opening remarks.
Well, it's been a long time since we lost. We won 12 games in a row. Last time we lost was January the 20th, and you kind of forget what that feels like. And what's tough about this time of year is wonderful as March Madness is. Last Sunday, 68 teams were thrilled, excited, on top of the world, and then all of a sudden, at the end of this tournament, there's going to be 67 sad teams and coaches, and that's what's tough about this because it's such an emotional roller coaster. But I'm so proud of our team, and we won a regular season championship, we won a conference championship or tournament championship, and not many teams in the country do that every year. So, really proud of them. Unfortunately, we had the worst case scenario that could have happened when Amoria Neal-Tizer went down. Our starting point guard, our leading scorer. We prepared really hard all week. We knew how good UConn is, but you don't prepare to have your starting point guard and the player that's going to play 40 minutes go down in the second quarter. And I'm not saying that would have changed the outcome of the game, but it might have changed the margin.
All right. Now we'll open it up for questions for Jaron and Shannon.
John Altavilla from the Associated Press. Jaron, could you talk about the third quarter? It seemed you guys didn't score in that quarter. What was it about it that was their defensive intensity, or what do you remember about that 10 minutes?
Well, you know, UConn's a great team. They do pride themselves in playing great defense and putting pressure, and we did struggle to score in that quarter, as the score shows, but we do trust our coaches, and we're just trying to follow our game plan to the best we could.
Howard Megdal with the next. Shannon, this one for you, actually. There's a legacy that's been built here at Mercer of getting to the tournament consistently, of excellence. I'm just wondering if you had a chance to reflect on your role in that and thinking about being a building block in creating something, that seems really sustainable.
My season just ended, and I haven't really had time to reflect a lot, but, I'm so proud of this team and what we've accomplished just this year alone, and then what, I've been through with Coach Garner. I think it's just amazing, something I'll never forget.
Jim Clark from Women's Hoops World. This is for both of you. Coach mentioned it's really hard to adjust, even if you have weeks, to lose your best player and your point guard. It seemed to me that you guys looked like you just stepped into what had to be done. How did you do that mentally? Because you lose that player. You could see it in UConn's season when they lost that player. They were pretty terrible for a couple of games. You guys seemed to not lose much of the intensity, even though you had a crummy third quarter.
Well, I think every day in practice, we just push trust in each other, and we can trust that anyone can step up in any given moment. So just pushing that into each and every player that we have is that we trust them and that y'all can perform.
I think it was hard losing more, but I think because of that, it made us trust each other more and just, count on each other. Next one up, no, someone else has to step up now.
Any other questions for the student athletes? All right. Thank you both. You can head back down to the locker room. And now we'll open it up to questions for Coach Gardner.
So, Coach, Jim Clark, Women's Hoops World. After Amari went down, your freshman kind of came in to run the point, and you guys ended up with 38 points. In the last 8 games, UConn has averaged, their opponents have averaged 40. So without your best player, you guys still got close to that. What does that say to you about this team and their strength?
I love your question right now because I needed a glass half full question like that. I appreciate that. What's crazy is Amoria was not supposed to be our starting point guard. We lost our starting point guard the third game of the season. So Amoria had to go in that role, which is why our depth at that position was a little bit less. And then having Erin Haupt, our freshman, that's a tough call for her to have to do, being a freshman and the magnitude of playing against UConn. I mean, she was with guarding Beckers, and I was just imagining her. I'm like, oh my gosh, what is going through her head? But, I think sometimes when tough things like that happen, I mean, it shook us. I mean, we were unable to run a lot of our plays that we normally run because Erin and India don't really have a large vocabulary in terms of what they can run. But I felt like Erin did pretty well. What it did, though, was it took her out of position to get open for her threes because she then had to handle the ball. And, that third quarter really absolutely was a nightmare, you know what I'm saying? And because we didn't play awful the first half, but we didn't really handle the third quarter at all. And I think what UConn did was they amped up their defense was amazing. Their press, was great. We got like 3 turnovers in a row that killed us. But, a lot of credit to Erin and the rest of the players. And we had to just try to buckle in, and then they started hitting threes, and that's what kind of got us. But proud of them. I mean, I hate to look at the score, but, at the end of the day, I think we played as hard as we could.
Coach Howard Megdal at the next. Got a couple for you if I could. The first is just, You guys this year were 11th in the nation in defensive rating in terms of points per possession, 13th in terms of threes, and Erin, like you said, was a big part of that. She's your first ever 40% three-point shooter in the time at Mercer. So I wonder whether you think that is sort of the next evolution with this team that consistently gets to the NCAA tournament. Is it a question of finding a way to have the offense match the defense?
Honestly, if you, and there'd be no reason for you to, but if you knew the history of our program and our previous teams that went to the NCAA tournament, we were a very potent offensive team, very potent. I mean, I had the point guard that led the country in assist to turnover ratio, like led them. So I'm more used to having a potent offense. We just didn't have, honestly, I mean, we didn't, like, Shannon's a great defensive player, but scoring is not necessarily what she should be. She should not be leading our team in scoring, if that makes sense. So honestly, what we're going to do is we're just going to go out there and try to recruit a little bit taller players, because our problem today with UConn was they were 5'11", 5'11", and 5'11", and we've got to be able, if we want to advance and not just win the SoCon, if we want to advance at some point, which is what I want to do, we've got to have those players that can match the size of at least the guards. But, you know, I think this year defense was more out of necessity, because I love coaching offense. We just didn't have as many. Erin was someone that we weren't sure how good she was going to be, and she could fill it up, but we just didn't have enough people around her that, you know, we don't have a low post presence. We don't have scores in the low block. And so that's something that we need to address as well with recruiting. But, you know, we're just going to keep recruiting the best players we can, and hopefully at some point we'll get a seed that makes sense that we can perhaps upset somebody.
And then just for Erin specifically, you know, obviously it's born of necessity, right? But there was a spot, Paige deflected it, got a run out, you called timeout, come over with your hands like this. What are you saying to Erin, number one, and number two, how significant is it to be able to have teaching moments like this, you know, here at Gamble with a freshman?
Yeah, you know, I probably coached Erin as hard as anybody on the whole team this year. You know, I had the seniors and the super seniors and the transfers, but Erin was that freshman that I felt like needed a little bit more Susie Gardner love, and she would not think it was love. But what I told her was, because we practiced against high-intensity defense in practice, not the same as today, but Erin was not meeting her pass in practice. And a player on our team got us, and we said, hey, look, and I demonstrated. I said, okay, you meet the ball. If you meet your pass, I will go through you and I'll foul you. And I demonstrated, like I was on defense. And so that was the moment that happened. I said, what did we tell you in practice? Meet your pass, and Paige would have fouled you. So it's just, I mean, I'm always nitpicking on something, but that's what that moment was. I remember it specifically.
Coach, just was wondering what the nature of the injury was. Was it to her elbow or shoulder?
It was her shoulder. I mean, I'm sorry, I said the word that you just said. It was her elbow. I didn't really. I think she maybe landed on it. We'll have to wait to see when we get home to our team doctors to take X-rays down there. But I don't know the seriousness of it. I know that Amori is tough, and I don't usually walk on the floor. But when she didn't get up, I'm like, this might be bad. So I decided to check it out. And of course, when she said don't touch it to our trainer, I'm like, okay, my heart dropped to my stomach. But you know, she's tough, and we'll pray for the best, honestly, you know. But it was a tough blow for sure.
Any other questions for Coach Gardner?
Thanks, Coach. You said something yesterday that stuck with me a little bit, and you were talking about the history of Mercer, you know, being multiple times in the AIAW tournament. And, you know, we're looking at 50 years of legacy since Title IX. You know, even your teams in Georgia, obviously, as the precursor for what Joni Taylor's doing down there. How much do you think it matters that we see the early powers in this in women's basketball continue to assert themselves as this history builds upon itself?
Yeah, I was recruited out of high school right around the time when it was shifting over. You know, I was at Georgia in 1982, so that was right when the NCAA tournament started for us. And I think because I grew up during that time when it was shifting, I'm probably a little bit more appreciative and understand. And growing up, I'm from Tennessee, so I grew up in Tennessee, so I really know the UT Chattanoogas and those kind of guys, and I know the history pretty well. it's exciting for me, and that's why I brought that up yesterday, was because my SWA happened to be on that team, and I respect her so much and what she's done for me. And I do wish that our players, I think you asked that question. I don't think they studied as much, as we do. And so I want to bring it out to the forefront and let them know. And I always try to make sure that our players understand when we have Alumni Day and those players come back for that particular game, I always want to make sure that they understand, hey, we would not have all the things we have without that group. And I even put out a tweet this morning before we left the hotel about thanking the players that wore the orange and black before us for this opportunity. So I'm very thankful, I think, because maybe I lived on the cusp of it. But I hope that more of these teams, I hope we can stay what we're doing. I really do. But I'm appreciative of it, and thank you for asking.
Any other questions?
Sure.
Yes.
Sorry to be glass half empty. I was wondering that third quarter you said was a nightmare. Was there any one particular thing that they did that was nightmarish, or one particular player, or just the combined intensity that they played?
I think it was interesting when I was checking on Amoria, which I promise you I never go on the court. As I walked past Coach Oriema's huddle, I was not eavesdropping, but I feel like I heard him say, every time you get a tip, it needs to be a layup. So in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, he's going to amp up the pressure, which he did. I mean, they were running 3 people at the ball. They're so long. They were getting tips. We had those 3 turnovers in a row. They were getting layups. We went in at halftime, and we talked about, I think it was, they had 18 points off of turnovers, and they had 12 points off of offensive rebounds for a total of 30 points. And they only had like 43 points, I believe, at half. So only 13 of those points were from a set, not transition offense and not offensive rebounds. So if you take those out of the equation, but then again, I feel like it was the press that got us, and then we weren't hitting shots. And I feel like part of it is we're rushing shots. We're not used to that length. We weren't hitting, and sometimes, unfortunately, that's contagious when you're not hitting. When you are hitting, it's also contagious. So it's just a total effort of misery. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.